The Smashing Pumpkins have just dropped Aghori Mhori Mei. It's only 15 months since we last heard from them with the wrap-up of the Atum Trilogy. Billy Corgan has come out to say that he wanted this to sound much more like an old-school sounding record, one for the fans for once, potentially. Today we're going to find out whether that is actually the case. We'll give you a rating. But we also asked the question, what should it mean to be a 90s sounding old-school record? Off the bat, I actually found this record to be a lot more joyful to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Thank you, Billy, for giving what the fans want. 10 tracks, 44 minutes, and actual songs. No, well, look, we're not here to bag out Autumn. We are here to talk about this new album and a return to form for the Smashing Pumpkins. Straight off the bat, mate, you can tell that the band has actually gone into the recording studio and recorded this as a band. We don't know that for a fact, but I can vouch that I reckon Jimmy and James are having more of an influence on this album. Thank you, Billy. There's some real standout tracks on this particular album, mate. We'll get to our rating later, but my favourite track off the bat, we don't get to it till track number 8, but it is Goeth the Fall. I think it's got a real 1979 kind of vibe to it, and Billy's vocals match the music. I just think if this is the first time for a long time for me in particular that's been achieved, mate. I know you've given this at least 2 or 3 listens already. What's your verdict?
Verdict is that I also enjoyed it. I agree with you. It sounds like a much more of a band effort, and I kept going back to a couple of the Autumn tracks just as a bit of a reference point. They do get the guitars out for this. It sounds like a lot more guitar driven, but there were guitar driven songs off Autumn, I think we have to remember as well. But It feels like there is a little bit of interplay, especially with James, and one does feel as maybe the exit of Jeff Schroeder has, I guess, provided a little bit more sort of energy into the band, especially into the OGs for the band. And whether that is true or not sure. The interesting part, Al, here is that the sessions for this started late 2022. We know that Jeff left late-ish in 2023, so potentially it's been stage managed there. But look, in terms of top tracks for me, look, I really enjoyed the first 4 tracks. It was interesting with Pentagrams. I thought that was the one for me. It felt like this could have been a single, actually. It went for over 6 minutes, so if it was cut down a little bit, it would have been probably a single for me. I feel as if with the chorus and the way in which the song progresses, I feel that this wouldn't be actually out of place in a concert setting. For me, this is a low-stakes effort. The Autumn project was, for me, overly ambitious. It became really Billy's pet project.
Yeah.
This is lower stakes, and it feels like there's just been a bit more joy that has been put into it. I feel as if that's maybe been the missing ingredient all along. Now, out of all of this, what are you going to give it as a rating?
Yeah, look, initially I was going to give it 3, but I've actually given it 3.5 with a bit of room to grow. There's a couple of tracks on here which kind of let it down, 999 and Sicarus. I'm not too sure where these kind of place in this album, but it's a solid 3.5 from me, mate.
I'm going to give it 3.5 too. I've noted that there have been people who have been giving this record 8, 9 out of 10, saying, this is an outstanding record, a classic. I'm not so sure of that. I think it's a vast improvement from Autumn, as we've been saying. You do feel as if there are things that he's I guess, used to doing when he's writing a song that are still coming through from the Autumn days and the albums before it. So I guess that's all right. But what you do get here is an album that is certainly good to listen to. So I think that's something you have to recognise here, and that's something that I feel as if it's worthy of a listen to. Autumn, not so much. And again, we've had tons of videos in relation to that, so we won't go back on that too much. But Al, the question we have, so Billy Corgan has come out and said that this was going to be an old school sounding record, and there were rumours that this was going to take place after Autumn. I'm going to get back to the guitars. But just as a question, what should it mean to be an old school, potentially 90s sounding Pumpkins record? What would your reference points be there?
Yeah, look, that's a really, really good question, mate, because I was a bit of a late bloomer being a Pumpkins fan. I really enjoyed the Machina era, Everlasting Gaze, Stand Inside Your Love, that kind of song. But for me, a reference point, Go With The Fall off this album, harking back to 1979, that combination of both lyrics and music. Like there's a story being told here. And I'm not saying that the other tracks off this album or Autumn doesn't have a story to tell, but for the average listener, even listening to it on the radio, you can tell that there's a story to be told, and it's told really well, and it all matches up, and there's cohesion. And I think the cohesiveness of this new album has really nailed that to a degree. I think there's still some room to grow, but for me, it would be that 1979 sound off Melancholy, which is just that era for me, mate, is just timeless.
Yeah, I think my reference track, if you put the singles aside, I'd be saying Jelly Belly. So that's off Melancholy as well on disc one. That one is very guitar driven, but there is a bit of a pomp in Billy Corgan's vocal phrasings in particular, something you don't see now, but you sort of saw it plenty on lots of different tracks. But it's a very interesting discussion. I think that there's a lot of different fans potentially of the Pumpkins now from different eras, but let us know in the comments, what do you see as the reference point for what you'd like to hear from something that would be considered old school?